Hello and welcome back to Underlab. It's time for something a little different. Which bosses in Deltarune are the best? Which bosses are the not so best? I'm sure it goes without saying, but this list is purely my opinion, so feel free to give me your takes in the comments. I'd also like to point out I'm rating these bosses versus each other. I think most of the boss battles are pretty great, but some have to be better than the rest. I'll be rating them based on how fun they are to fight, how impressive and creative they are both visually and mechanically, and how interesting or entertaining I find the personality of the character. I may also not include some really minor characters that I feel are more just unique enemies rather than true bosses. With that said, let's get started. First off, we have Lancer. Lancer is the furthest thing from a serious boss fight in Deltarune, and that probably has something to do with him being the very first boss we face. This goofy little guy was never going to pose a serious threat to us, and so it's hard to give this fight a serious rating. I'm putting Lancer in B solely because he's mostly funny. Next up, we have this thing. I don't like it. Something about it is making me afraid. Okay, its name is actually K-Round. There's not really much to this guy. He exists to introduce us to the axe system, so we realise there's ways to beat enemies other than just swinging at them. Lacking the personality of Lancer, and not really being the most interesting fight mechanically, I'm putting this strange creature in C tier. King has a truly bizarre design, reflected in his son Lancer. His fight is also pretty bizarre, and I have to admit his weird belly tongue thing might be the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. In my opinion, there's nothing too exciting about this fight, but it is seriously elevated by the emotional stakes concerning Lancer. If I was rating him by the cutscene that plays alone, I'd probably put King in A, but as it is, I think he goes into B tier. Jevil is the first secret boss of the game, establishing a trend that's continued throughout the rest of Deltarune's chapters. This maniacal little jester creature forces us to consider that not all is as it seems within the game, and pushes the challenge of Chapter 1 far, far higher than any other enemy does. With how much intrigue Jevil sparked as to where Deltarune's story is going, I don't think I can rate him as any less than A tier. Next up, we have the dancing robot trio, Sweet, KK and Capin from Chapter 2. To beat these guys, we need to dance. Yeah, there's not really much going on here. Just like K-Round, this isn't really a serious fight, so I'm putting them in C, as hip and groovy as these robot dudes are. Berdly, our somewhat narcissistic classmate, proves he isn't all just talk, with a fight lasting multiple encounters in Chapter 2. His attack patterns are pretty fun to dodge, if not all that complex, but what elevates him is the fact that Berdly himself is pretty hilarious. I'm giving him a B for Berdly. Tasque Manager is a character who definitely has her fans, but I don't think it's for her boss fight. So incredibly simple that it borders on insulting, I think we can safely put her in C. Hopefully she doesn't use one of her attacks to move up a tier while I'm not looking. Rouxls Kaard, whose name I'm hopefully not butchering, fights us repeatedly throughout Deltarune. His most memorable encounter is likely the one in Chapter 2, where we're forced to play Battleship to defeat him. While nothing too crazy, I'm putting him in B for his amusing and haughty personality and catchy theme song. Queen is the aloof ruler of the world of computers, constantly heckling us all throughout Chapter 2. Now, I have to be honest, I feel her boss battle is a little bit of a mess with everything going on. She does get points for her second phase, Giga Queen, Deltarune's take on the Punch-Out series of games. Because her personality is so much fun, and the fact her fight is at least very creative, if maybe not the best mechanically, I'm putting her in A. Sadly, there's no Q for Queen tier. Spamton Neo is the secret boss of Chapter 2, and is the sort of chaotic frenzy I would have liked Queen's fight to be. Spamton is pretty legendary among Deltarune fans, what with his bizarre live-action appearance and outlandish personality based on a spam email. With a great fight, extremely funny characterization, and an intense and catchy theme, I think Spamton is well deserving of being placed in S tier. Starting off Chapter 3, we have Lanino and Elnina. I really love the designs of these two, and their constant bickering throughout the fight never ceases to be funny. While not the most mechanically engaging, the way you can turn them against each other is truly unique, earning them max points for creativity. I'm sure Tenna would be proud. For this reason, I'm putting the weather duo into A tier. Tenna is an incredible boss that I think easily wins the award of most creative fight in the entire game. taking all the fun hijinks of Metaton and mashing them into a single fast-paced encounter, Tenna proves an old CRT can still learn new tricks as we drag through his entire scheduled programming in a single encounter. Evoking games like WarioWare, Tenna pushes the variety-style gameplay of Deltarune to its absolute limit, in an unforgettable battle that I doubt will be rivaled anytime soon. His explosive and charismatic personality bleeds into every interaction with him, reminding me of Spamton, but perhaps just a little more well adjusted. Tenna easily slots into S tier for me. The Shadow Mantle is fought within the video game world, and while you could argue it isn't a true boss fight, it's definitely an extremely unique encounter. This possessed piece of clothing seems to know a disturbing amount about Chris, and the lore implications alone would rate this boss pretty high in my opinion. The fact it's also a pretty fun and intense fight definitely helps. I'm putting the Mantle in A tier so it can protect everyone else from our next character. What can be said about the Roaring Knight? This is quite possibly the coolest fight in Undertale and Deltarune, combining the high intensity and awesome soundtrack of the fight with Sans with the magical and abstract visuals of our fight with Azrael from Undertale. The speed of the Roaring Knight's attacks alone keep us on our feet like no other enemy can, as the arena is sliced into pieces from vicious barrage after barrage of sword blows. Not only that, but the Roaring Knight is one of the most intriguing characters in the game, subject to countless fan theories as they haunt and pursue us throughout Deltarune. The Roaring Knight is another S tier for me, and I can only wonder if we will rematch them later on. Starting off Chapter 4 with a bang, we have Jackenstein. This fight contends with Tenna for just how unique it is, taking place within a haunted house where we have to find keys to proceed. Completely different from any fight until now, it really isn't even what I'd call a bullet hell. With Jackenstein's funky theme playing in the background, I think the pumpkin-headed giant is well deserving of A tier. Old Man Gerson has been one of the most awesome pieces of fan service we've gotten so far in Deltarune. In Undertale, Gerson used to reminisce about his times as a legendary hero among monsters, wielding his hammer of justice. While we had no reason to disbelieve him necessarily, his stories were just stories, and we had no idea if he was really as strong in his prime as he claims to be. Well, even as an old man, it turns out he really was the legend he promised, and his duel with Susie is one of the most intense optional encounters in the game. This is a great battle, though I will say I feel some of Gerson's attacks are a bit obnoxious, and don't necessarily have the visual flair of other fights to offset this. Despite this being a truly legendary battle, with Gerson himself being beautifully animated, it'd feel wrong to place the old-timer in anything less than S tier. Our first encounter with one of the fabled titans of prophecy won't soon be forgotten. Their introduction alone is like nothing we've seen until now, with a giant eldritch hand bursting out of a wall and immediately trying to fry us. I also can't stress enough how imposing their appearance is, with their head alone serving as our target during the battle. The only thing that might let this fight down a little is that my mind has already been blown by the likes of the Roaring Knight, and their attacks aren't quite as impressive as theirs. I do think this is intentional though, as the Roaring Knight is designed to be a battle you're more likely than not going to lose, and given the fight's amazing visuals and deep lore implications, I'm going to put our bold Lovecraftian friend in S tier. I hope you enjoyed my personal ranking of Deltarune's boss battles. Again, I have to stress, this is just my opinion, and as I mentioned at the start of the video, there's truly very few enemies in Deltarune that aren't at least somewhat creative and fun to fight. I feel the game has only gotten more and more unique since the release of Chapter 3 and 4, and I can only imagine the sorts of fights we'll be getting in the last few chapters. Feel free to post your personal boss rankings in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.